right, Five Nights at Freddy's, y'all's sequel's gonna have to step up its game because as of now, this is the best video game adaptation ever. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was released in December 2024, directed by Lee Fowler, starring Ben Schwartz, Idris Elba, and Keanu Reeves. And I was very excited for this movie. I didn't love, but I really highly enjoyed the first Sonic movie back in 2020. I don't think I reviewed it, but even if I had, it would have been archived by now, so there would have been no way to see it. I really highly enjoyed that one. I thought there was room for improvement, obviously. And I loved Sonic the Hedgehog 2 back in 2022. So, yeah, I was excited for a prospective third one. I remember when the second one came out, Jim Carrey was talking retirement, so there was a lot of speculation. Is he going to come back for this one? Who's going to voice Shadow? I heard Robert Pattinson suggested. I heard Keanu Reeves suggested. I heard Hayden Christensen suggested. All would have been great castings. We finally settled on Keanu Reeves. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about this movie, starting off with the good. And there's just really a lot that I love about this movie. First of all, the entirety of Team Sonic is absolutely phenomenal here. You got Ben Schwartz as Sonic, Idris Elba as Knuckles, and Colleen, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, as Tails. She voiced Tails in the games as well, so really good to have her back as Tails. I thought that they were all really, really great, and they all worked very, very well together. I thought that their teamwork and their dynamic was absolutely fantastic. The vocal performances of all three were amazing. And you get, of course, the new villain of the movie, Shadow, voiced by Keanu Reeves. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is Keanu Reeves' first villainous performance. I really liked him as Shadow. I love the emotional depth and the tragedy that he's able to bring to Shadow the Hedgehog's character. And honestly, this is probably some of Keanu Reeves' best acting outside of the first John Wick movie. So yeah, I really love Shadow's whole arc in this movie. I thought he was a very formidable antagonist with a deeper side to his character that gives him more of an emotional core than you would expect from characters edgy as Shadow. But I loved Keanu Reeves as Shadow. Now let's talk about the human characters. And I really only want to talk about two, but technically three. First of all, you do have Jim Carrey back in this movie as Dr. Robotnik, and he's still just as funny as ever. I probably enjoyed his performance in the second movie a little more, but I still thought that he did really good here, and they even gave him a really surprising character arc near the third act of this movie. Really loved him here. Also, with Jim Carrey, you get him playing Gerald Robotnik, Dr. Robotnik's grandfather. And honestly, of the two Jim Carrey performances in this movie, I prefer this one a little more, just because of what they were able to do with Gerald Robotnik. Now, in the games, Gerald Robotnik is dead long before the events of the games where Ivo Robotnik comes in. But I really enjoyed how they did Gerald Robotnik's story here and how they were able to bring him into the modern day to work with Dr. Robotnik. And just his performance, especially in the flashbacks, what they were able to do with his story and the pain and anguish on his face in one certain scene. I will not talk about what that scene is because it is a bit of a spoiler, and this movie is still relatively new-ish. But just the pain and anguish on Jim Carrey's face in that scene really solidifies Jim Carrey is much more than the funny rubber face man. He can actually be a dramatic actor when he wants to be, and this movie alone proves it. Now, the other human character I want to talk about is Lee Majdoub as Agent Stone. I love Agent Stone. I've loved him since the first movie, even though in the first movie he was more just a comedic side character to Dr. Robotnik. They gave him a much bigger role in the second movie, and in this movie they gave him an actual character arc, which I was surprised to see. I thought he was just going to be another, you know, funny haha character for Dr. Robotnik to push around again. But I was surprised with what they were able to do with Agent Stone in this movie. They gave him a character, they gave him development, and that's just the last thing I expected. But I really love how they did it. Aside from the characters, you get a really good story here. Really great action sets, especially the fights between Sonic and Shadow. I thought that those were absolutely fantastic. The CGI is so clean in this movie. I just love watching everything that happens in this movie. Also, this is probably the Sonic movie with the highest of the stakes, especially in the third act. There's a lot of humor here as well. The humor really lands for me. There's a specific scene in the third act. It's in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler, but there's a scene where they're trying to drive this laser in space, and they drive it away from where it's going. You got Dr. Robotnik, and they're going, "I did it!" And then it just drills the moon in half. And he looks at Tails and goes, "Look what you did!" And that's just the classic Jim Carrey that I've known and loved my entire life. I just really love the humor in this movie. The soundtrack is really good as well. A huge step up from the last two movies. I was not a big fan of the soundtrack in the second movie. There were a couple good songs in the first one, but overall, this is easily the best soundtrack of the three. One of the best third acts in all of cinema. Definitely the best third act in the entire trilogy for me. Yeah, I just really love this movie. That's about all for the good. On to the bad. Now, there's a couple things I just wasn't a fan of here. I appreciate the fact that they focus solely on Sonic and only the human characters that matter, mainly the Robotniks. But I don't know. I would have liked to see a little more James Marsden. I like James Marsden. I would have liked to see a little bit more of him. Also, and I know this is a very unpopular opinion, I'm probably alone on an island for this, but I was just not a fan of the laser dance sequence. I know a lot of people loved it. It just wasn't my thing. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel about it. Honestly, the only dance sequence in this whole trilogy that works for me was the first one, where you had Robotnik dancing around his little van or whatever. It was the only dance sequence in this trilogy that works for me, but whatever. People liked it. All power to them. But yeah, on for the bad, on to the final thoughts. I loved this movie. It's a toss-up between this and the second one for which one I like more. But yeah, this is easily one of the best video game adaptations ever made. I lied in my intro. The Last of Us still holds the edge. But this is easily second place to The Last of Us, followed by Detective Pikachu, followed by Five Nights at Freddy's. That's where I rank the video game adaptations. So, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, I really loved it. It was a lot of fun, great time at the movies with my kid, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Those are my thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog 3. What did you think about this movie if you've seen it? And as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.